The wealth of 735 billionaires is greater than the wealth of the poorest half of America combined. You are not being outcompeted, you are being robbed by structural design. But the part they don't tell you is that with every crisis, that gap widens. And this is 100% predictable. The middle class isn't collapsing due to laziness, it is being crushed by a mathematical law. This video exposes the mathematics of fury, the brutal proof, the mathematics of fury. Let's go straight to the data the financial system wants you to ignore. 735 billionaires in the US, the top 0.0002%, now own more wealth than the 165 million Americans in the bottom half. This is not a random statistic. It is proof that our economy is perfectly calibrated for capital concentration. Many argue that inequality is the result of bad choices or lack of education, but the truth is crueler. Wealth concentration is a predictable function of the system, not a bug. Look at recent history. Since 1989, the wealth share of the richest 1% of America has jumped from 23% to 32% of the total wealth. That is nearly a third of all the country's wealth transferred to the top in just 3 decades. How is this possible? For wealth to concentrate so quickly and consistently, there must be a silent engine working tirelessly. That engine is not hard work. It is a set of invisible laws that turn inflation into a wealth transfer weapon. For the 1%, inflation is their greatest asset. For you, it is a corrosive tax. Think about that number for a moment. 32% of all wealth. That fraction, nearly 1/3, represents trillions of dollars of value. Value that wasn't created by sudden genius or a new invention, but was transferred out of the hands of the working and saving public. This is the first lie they sell you, that a rising tide lifts all boats. The reality is that the new liquidity acts like a massive vacuum cleaner, systematically pulling purchasing power from the bottom and depositing it at the very top. This is the crucial distinction. It's not about how hard you work, it's about where you are standing when the money machine is turned on. When you hear financial news talking about market efficiency or free markets, understand that this concentration is the natural end state of the current design. They tell you to save, they tell you to budget, they tell you to invest a small percentage in a 401k, but they never tell you that the system is fundamentally designed to outrun your labor. We are talking about an economic game where the rules themselves are rigged. If you play a game of Monopoly, where one player starts with all the hotels and the ability to print money, the outcome is inevitable, right? That's what we're observing. This isn't a political argument. It's a simple, undeniable accounting fact. The silent engine, the Cantillon effect, and position. The key to this wealth transfer is the Cantillon effect, the 300-year-old rule the elite uses to ensure new money goes to them first. Money does not enter the economy uniformly. When a central bank injects liquidity, prints money, cuts interest rates, executes bailouts, that money does not fall from the sky. It enters at a specific point. The major banks, financiers, and asset holders. They are the early receivers. What do? They use this new money to buy assets, stocks, bonds, luxury real estate, before prices go up. The price of these assets shoots up almost instantly. Who are the late receivers? You are. The money only reaches the working class months or years later as a pay raise or a benefit. But when it arrives, the cost of living, housing, food, education, has already been inflated by the money the 1% used first. The Cantillon effect is not a moral failure. It is a wealth transfer mechanism that rewards position, not merit. It guarantees that in any injection of wealth, the 735 billionaires are closer to the machine than the 165 million people at the bottom. The lesson is simple. The game rewards capital, not labor. And we, at Finance Legacy, are here to open your eyes and prepare you to do the best you can. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let's keep paying attention. Let's visualize this. Imagine the central bank as a giant hose spraying fresh water, new money, into the economy. The banks and asset holders are standing right at the nozzle. They get the full pressure, the full value of the dollar before it mixes and loses its strength. They use that strong new dollar to buy $1 million piece of real estate. 6 months later, you finally see a trickle of that money in the form of a 3% raise. But by then, because of the early receiver's actions, that same $1 million house now costs $1.1 million. Your new nominal dollars have instantly lost purchasing power compared to those at the top. This is why inflation is the most effective hidden tax on the working class. It silently devalues your savings and your labor while simultaneously elevating the assets owned by the early receivers. The Cantillon effect is the mechanism that ensures the wealth gap is self-reinforcing. It's a vicious cycle where the solution offered by the system only serves to accelerate the problem, inequality. Understanding this effect is the difference between feeling like a victim and realizing you are a player who needs a new strategy. The inevitable consequence, the Pareto Principle. When the Cantillon effect accelerates wealth transfer in every credit cycle, the inevitable result is the Pareto Principle, the famous 80-20 rule. Originally, economist Vilfredo Pareto observed that 80% of the land was held by 20% of the population. Today, the Pareto Principle is the mathematical proof that Cantillon is working. With each new cycle of money printing, the 20% closest to capital receive the strongest funds and invest them in assets. The 80% furthest away receive the weakest money and use it to pay already inflated prices for consumer goods. The gap widens. This is what Thomas Piketty defined as R greater than G. The return on capital, R, is structurally greater than economic growth, G, the rate at which wages grow. If you are earning your wealth only through labor, G, you're destined to lose to those earning through capital, R. The 1% does not need to work. They use their capital to buy what benefits from the new liquidity. Wealth concentration is the logical consequence of a monetary system based on centralized issuance. The equation R greater than G is arguably the most terrifying formula in modern economics for the average person. It strips away all the myths of the American dream based on pure effort. It tells you, mathematically, that if your primary income source is your salary, your labor, you are fundamentally unable to catch up to someone whose primary income source is their accumulated assets. Even if you get a great 5% raise, a strong G, if the average return on capital for the wealthy is 7 or 8%, they're pulling away from you every year, compounding their advantage, while you are merely keeping pace or falling behind inflation. This isn't a flaw in your character, it's a fault in the system's architecture. The wealthy use the leverage of money creation to generate more money, completely detached from productivity. Their capital doesn't get tired, it doesn't need to sleep, and it doesn't get a fixed paycheck. It simply compounds, eternally winning the race against your finite hours of labor. Personal defense, Gresham and the abandonment of weak currency. The elite protects this wealth concentration by applying a third principle, Gresham's law, which ensures the system always works for them. Gresham's law states that bad money drives out good money. The 1% knows that the government will never resist the temptation to dilute the currency, the bad money, to finance debt. What happens? The good money, real assets like land, gold, productive equities, or intellectual property, is taken out of circulation and hoarded by those at the top. The bad money, the paper notes in your bank, the salary that loses value, is used in daily trade. The 1% uses the weak, diluted money to acquire the real value that cannot be counterfeited. Your money in the bank is not a treasure, it is a loan. The real value flees to assets the system cannot counterfeit. If the 735 billionaires are getting richer with every cycle, it is because they have abandoned weak money and are positioned to receive strong money first. They trade paper for production. The final lesson of the Elite Handbook is not about labor, but about positioning. The only way to beat the mathematics of fury is to exit the late receiver position and shift your income source from G, labor, to R, capital. You have to use your salary to buy your way into the early receiver position by owning assets that rise in price before your costs increase. The world will not change these laws. You have to be the one who uses them. You have to be the one who doubts first, not the one who trusts most. If you want to see with your own eyes how the game works, check out our latest video, How Wall Street Forced America into World War I. And to keep understanding how to protect yourself and start building wealth that defies the mathematics of fury, subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. Leave your like too and tell me in the comments, what is your opinion on the wealth gap of 735 billionaires?